This is the second battle between Prussian Prince of the Agony clan and Highamacus of the SITH clan. Prussian Prince is commanding Lusitani. It's a best of 3 in the blue tournament. And that build. Rome versus Lusitani on Alexandria. This is decent map for Lusitani, because Lusitani is going to be able to stay in the forest, not take too much damage from skirmishing. But the problem with staying in the forest is that the damage done on the charge by them is going to be reduced. So, strategist general, 4 veteran shields, 4 Lusitani nobles, then we have 4 Scutari cavalry, 1 Iberian skirmisher and 2 Cantabrian cavalry. For Rome we have the usual veteran legionaries and evocati, 2 Sociai equites, heavy mass, so better at charging infantry, doing impact damage than your equites. Then we have vigiles in front as meat shields, 2 auxiliary Syrian archers and some more vigiles, and it looks like Highamacus is using his arrow keys to move his formation now, which is quite nice, saves you a bit of micro in the opening stages of the battle. Prussians going to start moving up, and he sort of has to make a choice of whether to engage in the open. Look at this nice little elephant family running about. Don't be scared. And even the baby elephants have tusks here, so that's interesting. So he's going to have to make a choice, either charging on the open terrain and getting his charge bonuses, or engaging more in the forest and being able to reduce the damage taken from missiles, because Rome has in a grind out fight, it's no contest. The veteran legionaries and the evocati are going to be able to do super well against veteran shields if the veteran shields don't get a great charge. The veteran shields need to get a clean charge in order to do well against veteran legionaries. The Lusitani nobles are a slightly different story, but not much. They are not tanky at all. They need to get a good clean charge to do the damage they need to do. Because in terms of, I mean, Oathsworn have 45 weapon damage. They don't have as much armor penetration as the Lusitani nobles, but the charge bonus is only 32 on the Lusitani nobles, and they are cheaper than other sword units, and they have a vastly higher melee attack. But 45 armor, I mean 45 armor and no shield wall is just so problematic for them. And again, I'm going to fast forward because this looks like it's going to be another long game with a bit of maneuvering at the start, which is fine. I mean, of course you want to play slowly and methodically when you're playing a tournament battle. Rushing into, and I've done this myself many times, just rushing blindly is often a very good way of getting defeated. If you just rush blindly, it's going to be impossible to micro everything effectively, and it can give your opponent an advantage in terms of being able to respond to what you're doing. So these veteran shield warriors took some damage, but they didn't really lose anything. So nicely done there in moving them away, but he does have a problem. He needs to cross the distance here without taking too much damage. These Syrian archers, especially when using precision shot, they're just going to lay down the hurt on these veteran shield warriors, and it doesn't take much more than a few volleys until these veteran shield warriors drop so far down in strength that they are close to being combat ineffective against these veteran legionaries and the evocati. So this is a good position for Rome, because Rome is going to be able to skirmish out of the forest. The chargers are going to be blocked by vigiles, and it's not going to be easy for Lusitani to find an angle of approach here. Looks like Rome is going to make the choice easier for Lusitani by moving up. Obviously Highamacus wants to skirmish for as long as possible with his Syrians. They can get so much damage done against the Lusitani units. Bit of fast forwarding again until something happens. The Cantabrian cavalry hasn't really done much yet. It would probably be nice for the Prussian prince to send his Cantabrian cavalry around and have them in the rear of Rome, so that he could potentially rush in and stop the auxiliary Syrian archers or do damage to the Socii Equites. But over here they're not really able to do anything useful. Really like having javelin cavalry in the rear of enemy armies. If they're left alone, they can do massive damage, they can snipe the general. If they are responded to, like these auxiliary Syrian archers turning around, that gives Lusitani an opening to rush in and get at these Roman units. But it looks like Rome is the most aggressive here. Lusitani content to stay in the forest and camp a bit. Rushing in with the general here, not a good idea for the Prussian prince. The general is in a prime position to get sniped now. Here we have Scutari cavalry moving in. They could get a nice charge on the Vigiles if the Vigiles don't turn around in time. Could potentially break them. Nope, they're turning around because of the cavalry response. They might have been able to rush in and get out. It looks like the sort of indecisive movements going on here. But in the center, the Scutari cavalry just taking fire from the Syrian archers. They haven't killed anything yet, mostly because of the forest. Very nicely done here by the Prussian prince in pouring in the fire against the Socii Equites. And they are dropping so quickly to the javelins of the Cantabrian cavalry. But the Cantabrian cavalry is being sort of microed here. Getting into the Vigiles, also firing at the Vigiles is a massive waste of javelins. But if the Prussian prince keeps doing what he's doing now, turning off fire at will, and then doing damage to the Socii Equites, that's going to help him a lot in the late game if he's able to save his own cavalry. So I quite like what he's doing now in just getting into the rear of Highamacus and throwing the javelins at the Socii. Oh, these elite javelins, they just do so much damage to cavalry. So being very patient, chipping away like this, very nice nice move. And this is where I like the javelin cavalry to be, just smack in the rear of the enemy formation. So now he's going to pull back his Syrian archers, and this is an opening for the Prussian prince, because when the Syrian archers are pulled back, then the Prussian prince can rush forward without taking damage. But he's going to have his Cantabrian cavalry in there, try to do some more damage. I really think the Prussian prince should start attacking now. His Cantabrian cavalry isn't able to pull out just in time, but he is actually baiting some of these arrow volleys, which is, I mean, he should rather take the damage on his Cantabrian cavalry rather than on his nobles and his veteran shields. But he needs to be careful here, because these Cantabrian cavalry, they don't have a lot of armor, very poor shields, and they need to do a lot of damage to the Equites to give Lusitani every advantage they can get. Ooh, miss micro here. Oh yeah, got wrecked. 10 kills on the veteran by the veteran legionaries on the Cantabrian cavalry. The Cantabrian cavalry is tiring out now, so it's going to get slower and slower as the battle progresses, and it's going to be much harder to bait javelins when the Cantabrian cavalry is tiring out. But it's still doing some nice damage to the Socii Equites. So the skirmishing isn't all bad for the Prussian prince at the moment, although Rome has gotten the better of the engagements so far. And here again, just not being able to kite some of the missiles, but not avoid them entirely. But pulling away Vigiles from the front lines of Rome is going to be very useful for Lusitani. But I think Highamacus knows that in a straight-up engagement, his armies is probably going to do very well against the Lusitani army. He has the ability to speed bump, he has the ability to do damage at range. And here we go, engagements. Charges coming in from both sides. The Lusitani nobles and the Scutari cavalry getting into the legionary cavalry to stop them, stopping the veteran legionaries over here. Here comes the engagement. Nice charge here, stopping the veteran legionaries, but also losing so much Skirmishing cavalry. Lusitani nobles charging in, getting a decent enough charge here. Headhunt instantly. Let's see their kills. Yeah, they're getting really nice kills here. Another unit of Lusitani nobles. They got hit by the Sociaequites. Over here, the Roman cavalry is getting smashed by Lusitani nobles. The Lusitani nobles here need to be very, very careful because they're up against 2 units of veteran legionaries, and they're not going to like that much. Here we have a nice bait and switch, charging in the Skirmishing cavalry against the veteran legionaries to stop them, then presumably following up with the veteran shields. Being able to take out the cavalry with these Lusitani nobles has been massive. But the general of the Prussian Prince needs to be super careful because he is under fire. He's up against 3 units of legionaries and he does not have the armor to stay in that engagement for long. So although Lusitani is doing reasonably well here, you can see what happens to 1 unit of Lusitani nobles when they are ganged up on by 2 legionary units. They're going to die. And they're going to die quickly. And when the general of the Prussian Prince dies here, he is getting a lot of kills, but so are these veteran legionaries. And he is outmatched here. This is perfect terrain for Rome. Managed to get a nice rear charge in here and give these legionaries a morale penalty, but it's going to be hard to break them because they have 65 morale. So many Roman units in the rear here that are able to rush in and close in these Skirmishing cavalry to stop them from being able to cycle charge effectively. Veteran shields charging into Vigiles, but they're going to get smashed by the javelins from these Highamacus cohorts. And the Lusitani nobles, you can see the problem they have in dealing with several units of Roman infantry in terrain like this. The Lusitani nobles are getting kills, but the veteran legionaries are, even though they're attacking the rear, they are chomping away at the Lusitani nobles. Here we have the reverse: two veteran shields against 1 veteran legionary, and the veteran shields are going to do well there. But the 85 armor is just going to allow them to ignore so much base damage, which the veteran shields aren't really going to be able to. So the longer these engagements go on, the greater the disparity between the tankiness of the Roman infantry and the fragileness of the Lusitani nobles is going to become. Lusitani needs to win on the charge. They are sort of like a Drician kingdom, with small shields that are for show. If they don't get great charges, if the charges get blocked, interrupted somehow, then they're going to have massive problems. And here we have the general of Lusitani starting to waver, only 89 kills. These veteran legionaries in Highamacus have almost gotten the same amount of kills. They are going to break now due to being charged by veteran shields. Here you can see a veteran shield warrior that's gotten some nice charges, 130 kills. The Lusitani nobles are holding out here due to their great morale, getting into the rear of these, well, yeah, they're getting into the rear and destroying them. 1 unit of veteran shields routed from the center here, but the Cantabrian cavalry just does not have the mass to stop these auxiliary Cyrenaices, and these auxiliary Cyrenaices are going to be a massive problem, because they're going to be able to devastate the Lusitani nobles. The Lusitani noble general is, amazingly enough, still alive in the center, still holding on. And a rear charge here could work wonders, and it looks like the rear charge is going to come and might break this veteran legionary if it's hit, but it's not hit. There it is. So the general of the Prussian Prince is amazingly still alive in the center here. Very depleted unit of Lusitani nobles charging into Highamacus cohorts. The Cantabrian cavalry getting into the Legatus, but they're not going to be able to defeat him. Over here, the Lusitani nobles, they're exhausted. The general of the Prussian Prince is dead. The Cyrenaices are doing absolutely fine, just pouring the fire into the Lusitani units. And having these units alive for the late game is just devastating. So nicely done there by Highamacus in keeping his units alive. Keeping the Cyrenaices alive. Firing at the Iberian skirmishers now. Interesting, but I guess he can't afford it at this point. The Lusitani nobles fighting until there are only 7 men left in the unit because of headhunt. But there is too much Rome left on the field now. They're probably, I mean, Iberian skirmishers are going to lose to auxiliary Syrian archers in close combat. Cantabrian cavalry doesn't really have the mass to do a lot of damage on the charge. These units are attacked in the rear though, so getting a few more casualties on them might make them break, but I kind of doubt it. Especially when the Legatus comes in here against the Iberian skirmishers and destroys them. So I don't know how much ammunition these auxiliary Syrian archers have left, really. But even if they don't have any ammunition left, Rome still has 1 Vigile, 2 Evocati. It looks like they indeed do have some nice ammunition left, and they're doing a lot of damage to the veteran shields. The Legatus is available for rear charging if needed. Lusitani nobles, veteran shields and nobles. The Vigiles are going to rush into the Lusitani nobles, which is a good choice, I think. The Evocati Corps charges into the veteran shields, and the veteran shields are going to die quickly to Evocati when they are this depleted. Just so few Lusitani nobles left in this unit. Headhunt is going to make them stay in the fight for a while and get some more kills, but I mean their melee attack just goes up to massive values when they use Headhunt. But the Vigile unit that blocked the charge from these guys is of course dead, bolstering the kills of this Lusitani noble that has 3 bronze chevrons in veterancy. You don't see that often. It's gotten a lot of kills. But now it's just getting decimated by the fire from these auxiliary Syrian archers. So Highamacus takes this, nicely done. Decent map for Lusitani, but the Roman infantry is just so tanky, so sturdy, and although the Prussian Prince was able to neutralize the cavalry of Rome fairly effectively, his build is the riskier one in this case, because the Roman build has a nice mix of cavalry, some skirmishers, very tanky infantry. He doesn't have tanky infantry. It ended up getting a lot of kills actually, most of his units did, but I mean Lusitani is, and especially when there's a limit on the amount of sword units you can bring. You could only bring 8 sword units, a maximum of 8 sword units or 8 melee units in this tournament. Then it's going to be very hard for Lusitani to overwhelm their opponent with a lot of swords. And you could say that if Rome can do the same, if Rome can just overwhelm with veteran legionaries, Evocati and Hastati, then Lusitani isn't much better off. And yes, I agree on that. On maps like these, Rome has a decisive advantage over Lusitani. Just somehow being able to reduce the charge's impact from Lusitani is going to make the grind out very possible for Rome, while Lusitani just needs to get its great charges. That's simply not possible in all types of terrain and all types of situations. So now it's 1-1, and we're going to move on to the tiebreaker game. Strength and Honor.